Hi everyone, this is Nick Pollock here from Roar Lions Roar. While you're here, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that alert bell so you never miss any of our new content. And if you prefer to listen instead of watch, make sure you check us out on your podcast platform of choice where you can subscribe and download each new episode. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Go State!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host tonight, Matt Filipovich, joined by my phenomenal co-host, Mr. Bill DeFilippo. Bill, what's going on?
I don't know, man. We're in uncharted territory, so I truly don't really know what's happening right now. What about yourself?
I started to do my New Year's cleaning, not spring cleaning. So I cleaned up my desk yesterday, and I dusted off my framed picture of Matt McGloin, which hangs about 8 inches from me every single podcast. And it just got me feeling some type of way, Bill. Penn State plays Notre Dame in a national semifinal for the opportunity to play for a national championship on Thursday night. Last time Penn State and Notre Dame played, I was 10 years old. So I have no actual memories of that game. Outside of the big play. I don't remember how I felt. I don't remember any of that kind of fun stuff. But I am just so excited that this is the moment so many of us have been waiting for, and to get the opportunity to play these games against, Penn State's bigger, similar brands in the sport. It's just really cool. I am so jazzed that we're here.
It's actually very funny that you mentioned that, Matt, because I think as longtime listeners of the pod will remember, will know. I grew up a huge Notre Dame fan. I have a cousin who played he was a walk-on at Notre Dame, but it was like a family thing that your college football team is going to be Notre Dame. So I was a Notre Dame fan growing up, and I remember watching that game against Penn State and being devastated. Notre Dame was coming off of a 33-3 loss to Georgia Tech. They went with a veteran, if I remember correctly, a veteran starting quarterback in their first game instead of starting Jimmy Clausen, who was their high-profile freshman recruit. And they ended up turning to Clausen for the game in Happy Valley. That has since turned into a legendary game for Penn State fans because it was the first ever full stadium whiteout. That game had Derek Williams with his long punt return for a touchdown to tie things up at 7. And from there, Penn State was able to just really take it to the Fighting Irish.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, that game was in 2007. It was Charlie Weiss against Joe Paterno in Happy Valley. And the two teams have not played since. It's one of those things that it's almost, when you think about it, even beyond the way that non-conferences are scheduled, just through bowl games, it's kind of surprising that Penn State and Notre Dame, with how easy it would be to match the two of them up in something, have just never crossed paths in the 17 years since that.
Mm-hmm.
But they have. And here we are. As a result, Penn State's entering this game on a 1-game winning streak against them.
That is true. I saw the series. They have played, I want to say it's 19 times. Penn State has won 9. Notre Dame has won 9, and there has been one tie. So these programs.
Now, I want to stress something with this young Matthew.
Okay. What do you got?
Penn State and Notre Dame first played in 1913.
Okay.
They then played in 1925, 1926, and 1928. Notre Dame won 3 and tied 1 of them, and then they reignited playing each other in 1976. Notre Dame won that. So from 1981, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, and then those 2 years, 06 and 07, that's when they played their most games in one period of time. And since then Penn State is 9-4 against Notre Dame. So in a way, you could say that recently Penn State has owned this rivalry.
You are not wrong, Bill. I think recency goes away after 15 years. Can we call it?
I don't know.
Can we cut it off there?
For the purposes of the agenda that I am attempting to push here, no, it doesn't.
Bill, the game is on Thursday night, weirdly enough. It's so weird that this game is being played on a weeknight. The Nittany Lions right now, at time of recording, are either a 2.5 to 3-point favorite, depending on where you look. Notre Dame, 13-1 on the season, similar to Penn State. Notre Dame has set a program record for wins in a single season, following their win over Georgia in the college football playoff quarterfinals. Only loss on the year came in week 2 in a pretty hilarious game to Northern Illinois. I remember watching that with a good buddy of mine, and when they trotted Jeter out there to kick like a 62-yarder, I think we both just started giggling immediately because we knew what was about to happen, and we were right. But since then, I got to give Marcus Freeman credit. That dude can coach. No doubt about it. He has turned that program around, and it's not always pretty. Especially offensively, it's not always pretty, but I know Freeman's a defensive guy. But Notre Dame has been one of the more impressive teams in the country ever since that bad loss in week 2. And it is neat to see Notre Dame bounce back, fight their way in, and set up this college football semifinals between 4 huge brands, 2 of them being the 2 biggest brands in every northeastern Pennsylvania town.
Yeah, it's just to correct, I think you said that Penn State were 2.5 point favorites. They were 2.5 point.
Oh, I
underdogs.
apologize if I did. Yes,
I might have
dogs.
I might have misheard that.
I do that. I have said that before.
Just
Penn State's favored a lot, so like I'm not used to saying dogs, so I apologize. Yes, the Nittany Lions are 2.5 to 3 point dogs. I apologize.
But yeah, you mentioned their loss to Northern Illinois in the second week of the season, 16-14. It's very interesting because when Brian Kelly was the coach at Notre Dame, the complaint was always he will beat the teams that it's very similar to what we've heard out of Penn State fans with James Franklin. He will beat the teams he is quote unquote supposed to beat. And then he will get into big games and he will lose them. That hasn't always been the case with Freeman, or supposed to win when there's not like a major disadvantage in terms of talent.
Right.
Brian Kelly would always win those, and then he would step onto the field against an Alabama or an Ohio State or whoever it would be, and he would get run off of the field. Under Freeman, Notre Dame, it's been a bit of a build-up job post Kelly. It's not like they were starting from a terrible place. They went 8-4 in his first year, but something that has been kind of consistent with Freeman is he is able to get his team up for big games, however you want to define a big game. Last year, they lost to Ohio State, but that was an absolute war against Ohio State. They had that game against USC last season where they had Caleb Williams. In hell, there were a couple of losses in there, but even when you go back to his first year, they played Ohio State. Ohio State was clearly a better football team, but they were in it until the very end. They had a big win over Clemson in that time. He continuously, for whatever reason, has trouble with MAC teams. He lost to Marshall in his first season.
Something about Marshall.
Illinois this year. They were MAC at the time.
Or were they Conference USA at the time?
Or the Conference USA, yeah, it was something like that. But it's the reason his nickname is Marcus Freeman. But if you look at Notre Dame, what Marcus Freeman has been able to do, first game of the season, and this is a game that the shine is kind of a lot of their wins over ranked teams this year. The shine has been taken off afterwards, which I'm only saying because I'm a Penn State fan, and this is the same goddamn thing that happens to us anytime we play a ranked team. Texas A&M in the first week of the season, they went down to College Station and they won that game. They beat Louisville, they beat Navy, they beat Army. They didn't play another team that was ranked when they played them, but they took care of business against everybody else in the playoff. Indiana did not stand a chance against them. That game ended 27-17. Indiana, their scripted drive, if I remember correctly, their scripted drive went pretty badly. Notre Dame was up 27-3, and then just kind of took their foot off of the gas. Indiana recovers an onside kick. Georgia, they go in with the backup quarterback, but even then, they did not look like they looked like the slower and the smaller and the less physical team,
especially outside. Dude, that Notre Dame secondary bullied the Georgia receiving core, and I don't think anybody thinks too highly of Georgia's receivers in 2024/2025, but that was impressive what Notre Dame was able to do regardless.
Yeah, and all this is to say, after they lost that game against Northern Illinois, there was a very, 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 very narrow path that Notre Dame had to be able to make it to the playoff. And it required kicking the hell out of everybody, winning their ranked games in particular in convincing fashion. For the most part, they did that. And just making the Northern Illinois game look like as big of a fluke as they possibly can, and the way that Marcus Freeman has gotten them up for every game since that loss to Northern Illinois has kind of served as proof of concept here.
That Northern Illinois loss, I'm ready to declare as the biggest fluke of the 2024 college football season. I think Notre Dame is
It's up there
for sure one of the 4 best teams in college football right now. Nittany Lions, weirdly enough, though, do come in higher seeded, which I thought was very funny. So Nittany Lions get to wear the blue home jerseys down in Miami for the Orange Bowl. Bill, how do you want to start talking about this game? I feel like there's a lot of ways we can look at this. In the rundown, I called out we'll talk Penn State defense versus Notre Dame offense first. But is there anything you want to hit on at the top here?
Yeah, I just want to start with a very broad thing, which is that I think that Notre Dame is going to end up playing a very clean game, and they won't make many mistakes, whether that is something like a turnover or whether that is something like, not knowing who is supposed to be covering who on a specific play, not being gap sound, all these sorts of things. So I think that Penn State has to take advantage of opportunities whenever they pop up, and they cannot give things to Notre Dame, whether that is a penalty, whether that is a turnover, whether that is a miscommunication where Kobe King or Tony Rojas doesn't know who's supposed to be with the tight end, so they both go in one direction, and the tight end is like that kind of thing. And what I will say is that there has been a lot of talk about how similar these teams are, and I absolutely agree with that. I say that to say, I think that playing Boise State in the lead up to this does a half decent job preparing Penn State for playing Notre Dame. I think Boise is a 100 or 200 level course, and Notre Dame is the 400, 500 level of course, where Boise wanted to be a physical team. They wanted to build their offense around their running game. They want their defense to be really aggressive, to try and confuse you, to not let you know what you're looking at, to speed your quarterback up, all these sorts of things that Notre Dame also does. And I think that could end up being a really good learning experience and a really good bit of preparation for Penn State as it goes into a game against one of the best teams in America in Notre Dame.
I do think on the other side of that coin, though, I think Notre Dame's matchup against Georgia helps them prep pretty well for what they have against Penn State. I mean, no one has a Tyler Warren. The Georgia offensive line is not very good. The Penn State offensive line, not that it's like outstanding, but it's a lot better than I think Georgia's. But the receiving game and the pass catchers out wide between Georgia and Penn State are closer than we'd like to admit, I think. I don't think anybody has that true alpha just yet. Although Amari Evans, I'll be talking about him in this podcast a good bit. I have my eyes monitoring there. Bill, Riley Leonard. Dude's been in college a long time. Notre Dame really likes this thing where they keep on taking quarterbacks from the ACC and specifically North Carolina. It was Sam Hartman for just 1 year, and now Riley Leonard now from Duke. He doesn't do a ton with his arm on the year. 232 completions on 349 attempts for 2,383 yards. That's 66.5% completion percentage. And Bill, just a 6.8 yards per attempt, 18 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 15 sacks. He is a very good runner, so he is very escapable. On the year, Leonard 149 carries, which actually leads the team. It's one more than Jeremiah Love. But with Leonard, 149 carries, 831 yards, and a whopping 15 touchdowns. Where are you at on Riley Leonard? How do you handle stopping a guy who I think plays more like Will Howard than he does? Like, of any quarterback Penn State has played outside of Will Howard, I think Riley Leonard plays the most like Will Howard.
It's interesting because I think Leonard, when you say a quarterback doesn't make mistakes, you mean they're not throwing interceptions.
Correct.
And that is obviously true of Riley Leonard. He has been, even dating back to his days at Duke, he has been incredibly careful with the football. Pulling it up right now, 967 pass attempts in his career, 16 interceptions in that time. He's always been a very limited passer. He's not a guy who is ever going to, take shots down the field and beat you with them. But one thing that I find really interesting about Notre Dame's offense is that they are tied for 83rd nationally in yards per attempt and tied for 120th nationally in yards per completion. And I feel like in my watching of Notre Dame, that's almost a function of their offense because Riley Leonard is really good at throwing the ball to the guy who is open, throwing the ball to the making the safe and smart throw and picking up what they need to pick up on a given drive. I think that, you look at Leonard, he is 60th nationally in passer rating, and passer rating in college football is basically like a formula that is like completions, attempts, yards, interceptions, touchdown. It's something like that. And when you look at what a quarterback does, that doesn't really touch on everything. That is a very limited scope into what a quarterback is supposed to do. So he is 60th nationally in passer rating, but he is 17th nationally in QBR, which is a stat that is more designed to encompass everything. I don't know what the formula is for QBR, but that factors in like specifics in your passing game. It factors in your quarterback's ability to run, all these sorts of things. So I think Leonard is a really interesting quarterback in that I don't think he's going to give Penn State anything. I don't think that he's going to, whether it's missing a wide open man, whether it's throwing a ball super inaccurately to a guy who is open, whether that is turning the ball over, whatever it might be. But I do think he is someone who, because he is a limited passer, he's a good runner. I think he's more savvy and like knows how to use his legs than like breakaway speed runner. Because of all this stuff, I think that if Penn State's defense has Abdul Carter and has the kind of game they are capable of playing, they can make it so Riley Leonard cannot beat them. It's just dependent on Carter's health, whether they bring their A game on a certain day, and Penn State's ability to bottle up their running game is in whole because so much of their offense is built around their ability to run the football.
And the second part of that, I mentioned him earlier, is Jeremiah Love, who was dinged up towards the latter half of the season. It sounds like he's going to give it a go. I mean, I think this is pretty similar to Abdul Carter. Like, obviously, none of us know if Abdul Carter is going to play. None of us know if Jeremiah Love's going to play. But, like, if they're able to go, I would imagine you're going to see both of those ball players on the field. Like, and everyone has to just deal with not knowing pretty much until 7:33 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. Like, we'll know when we know. But on the year, Love, 148 carries for 1,076 yards and 16 touchdowns. Him and Leonard do a very good job playing off each other. They understand their role in this offense. Again, this offense is not going to try to take deep shots down the field. They don't have these skill players to do it, frankly. Like, they got some good options. Like, Bo Collins is a good ball player. Jaden Greathouse can play. Jordan Faison, I thought, played a pretty good game against Georgia. Like, they do have enough guys similar to, like, Bill, I think how we probably view Trey Wallace and Amari Evans. They have pretty similar guys who can get the job done, but they're not going to be guys who terrify you outside. So it's going to be of paramount importance that Kobe King, I think specifically, has a humongous game limiting Jeremiah Love, limiting Riley Leonard, and doing everything they can to prevent Notre Dame from popping that explosive run, which can happen.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning their third running back, Jadarian Price, is a guy who has played a lot for them this season. Love is at 148 carries on the season. Price is at 110. There is a bit of a drop off from Love to Price. It's not like you're replacing Jeremiah Love with me or anything like that, but you are going from a guy in Love who is averaging 7.3 yards per attempt to a guy in Price who averaged 6.5.
Can I give one guy a shout out here, Bill?
attempt.
Because I have the rushing numbers in front of me as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Devin Ford
Go
is
ahead.
on the Notre Dame roster. Shout out as always to Devin
There he
Ford.
is.
On the year, 13 carries, 55 yards. Shout out Devin Ford.
Yeah, and I think that the way that their offensive line is able to mash, and the way that because this is probably the best offensive line that Penn State has gone up against all
Oh, yeah.
season. It's them or Oregon. So the way their offensive line is able to mash, the way that Leonard is able to use his brain and his legs in the running game is inherently going to open things up for the running back, whomever it ends up being. I think I read that Love participated in practice for Notre Dame, but had like a big wrap around his knee, or so. It was something like, if he goes into this game, he's going into this game compromised. Ultimately, what I think, I think they're going to be able to move the ball on the ground a little bit. It's going to be, I don't think Penn State can sell out to the extent that it did against
Genty.
Against Boise, against Genty, but against Boise for two reasons. One, Maddox Madsen was not a threat to beat Penn State with his legs the way that Leonard is. And two, while I'm not super high on Bo Collins, on Jaden Greathouse against Jordan Faison, Mitchell Evans, Jaden Harrison, Chris Mitchell, Jaden Thomas, all guys.
John Mitchell is
Yes.
Chris Mitchell, so a family connection there too.
All those guys are pass catchers who have at least 18 catches on the season. Between 18 and 37 catches are everyone in that group, and Love is also in that group. I think that if there's one thing Leonard will do is he will find his open guy and get the ball to him. And if Notre Dame gets into the red zone with their ability to smash and their ability to run the football, I think they would be able to get points a little bit more effectively than either SMU or Boise have had on this run.
Let's say Abdul Carter, just for sake of argument, is good to go. He's able to get out there. He's able to play. This Notre Dame offense doesn't do a ton of like 4 or 5 step dropbacks because that's just not in their playbook. That's not their strength. How can Penn State generate a pass rush here, Bill, knowing that Notre Dame is going to do everything they can to neutralize it? This isn't an offense that's going to get the ball out crazy quick, but this is an offense that I think is going to be pretty difficult to get them on the ground consistently behind the line of scrimmage.
I think that's pretty easy, and you make it so they have to do that in order to pick up first downs. I mean, you go through the numbers on here, and I'll cut through a couple of them. Yards per play, tied for 13th nationally at 6.3 yards per play. They're second nationally at 6.1 yards per rush. They complete 66.23% of their passes, was tied for 19th nationally. And Leonard and their quarterback room, is Leonard the only quarterback to get sacked? His backup, Steve Angeli, has been sacked a few times. They're allowing sacks on 8.13% of dropbacks, which is tied for 23rd. Read very much the wrong one. Allowing sacks on 4.74% of dropbacks, which is 37th nationally. The things that Notre Dame's offense are not especially great at. One is third downs. They're converting 38.46% of third downs, which is 78th nationally. They are at 6.9 yards per completion, which is tied for 83rd nationally, and 10.5 yards per attempt there, and then 10.5 yards per completion, which is tied for 120th nationally. If you put Notre Dame into situations where they have to throw the football, you are taking away the big strength of their offense, which is their ability to run the ball and do stuff off of their running game. So if Penn State is really stout on first down and second down, if Tom Allen can, whether it's drawing up blitzes, whether it's bottling them up, whatever it might end up being, if you put them in situations where it's 3rd and 9 and Riley Leonard has to drop back, I think you can have a little bit of success. And then obviously Abdul Carter's shoulder is going, or we presume shoulder is going to be a big part of this. If Penn State can win on the first 2 downs and put Notre Dame into situations where they have to throw the football, Penn State's defense is going to have a really, really good evening on Thursday night.
You mentioned their third down percentage, Bill. A big part of, I think, the reason it's so bad is they go for it on fourth down a ton. So they kind of play third down like a lot of traditional offenses play second down. They love to go forward on fourth down, especially on their side of the 50. Their kicking game has not been good all season long. I know Jeter was money. What do you got, Bill?
So there's a big old asterisk on that. I would say to you and to any Penn State fan, just ignore the numbers on what Mitch Jeter has done this year. He had, I'll pull it up right now. Coming into this season, uh, 2 years ago, he was 11 for 11 on field goals, 42 for 40 on extra points. Year before that, 12 for 14 and 33 for 34 on extra points. This year, he's 11 for 18, but he was dealing with a hip and a groin injury for much of the season and has just now gotten to the point where he is healthy.
You're right.
Going into the game against Georgia, he had made 5 kicks from 40, or going into the playoff, he had made 4 kicks from 40 or longer all season. He was 4 for 8 on them. Since the start of the playoffs, he is 4 for 4 on kicks of 40 or longer, and hasn't missed one all postseason. So I would just caution, if you are a Penn State fan who is going to say, all right, their kicker who sucks is coming in, that's awesome. There is a reason he hasn't been very good for much of this season, and he has apparently got himself to a place where he is physically able to kick the football accurately and without much pain.
Which is a good call out, though. I should have mentioned that he has been hurt for a lot of the year, and he has been better. Like he was money in the Peach Bowl. Like shout out to. It's always cool to see a kid work through it, regardless of who he plays for. But Bill, that doesn't change the fact that this Notre Dame team wants to stay on the field. The offense wants to be on the field. They will go for it on fourth down a ton. I got to give that coaching staff a ton of credit. Marcus Freeman understands the flow of the game and when is the time to be aggressive and when is the time not to be. He has read that situation very well for almost the entirety of his tenure. So I wouldn't be surprised, like, if, let's say, Penn State, this might be a bigger indictment on the offense, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. But let's say Notre Dame has it as 4th and 5, hovering on, let's say they're even on the Notre Dame side of midfield. If I were them, I would go for it. I mean, that's kind of been your mantra all year. And I think that they will be aggressive like that just because I have, what is it now, 15 data points that say they're going to try to be.
Yeah, wouldn't be a surprise. They're very much a team that, and they do it in a different way from Penn State, where Penn State is a lot more smoke and mirrorsy, and Notre Dame just wants to line up and take it to you. Yeah, I would be very surprised if we don't see Notre Dame at least try to convert a couple of fourth downs in this game. Looking at their game against Georgia, they only attempted 1 fourth down. They didn't end up getting it. Looking at their game against Indiana, they didn't even need to try on any fourth downs because of how they dominated that football game. Yeah.
Bill, give me a guy on defense you're watching in an interesting schematic spot. Doesn't have to be a guy you think is going to make a big play. Like Zakee Wheatley, I was honestly happily surprised he won the Fiesta Bowl Defensive Player of the Game because a safety, as the guy against Ashton Genty, was not something that had on my bingo card. So it could be anybody, Bill, but give me a guy you're watching on the Penn State defense a little closer here this week.
I would say Penn State's defensive tackles. I would say the grouping of Zane Durant, of Devontae Thomas, of Keziah Izzard. Those 3 guys got the hell beaten out of them last game, and they kept battling, they kept fighting, they kept pushing against Boise State's offensive line. They're going to have to play just as good, if not better, to kind of eat up space and open up those lanes for the running back, for the linebackers, for the safeties to be able to come into the box and make plays, especially if Abdul Carter is compromised or limited or anything like that. They have to be the guys who win at the line of scrimmage against an offensive line that is very, very difficult to win against. So I'm going to go with them. They have to make Notre Dame commit as many bodies to them as humanly possible. The more they do, the more I like Penn State's chances in this game. If Notre Dame is able to just physically overwhelm them, then we're in a situation that I don't know if we want to talk about very much.
For me, it's going to be Deni Dennis Sutton. I think Deni's playing some of his best football right now. He has been very aggressive. He maybe has been a little bit too aggressive. That, I'll call it what it was. That cheap shot on Genty he had was pretty Bush League. Like, I love that the guy wants to show some physicality, but he has to be smarter. And if Abdul Carter is not able to go or is, a shell of what he could be, Deni's going to be the main guy they're going to rely on to get pressure on a running quarterback. And if you can clog run lanes quickly, you can really cause this Notre Dame offense to sputter a little bit. I don't think you're really going to shut that running game down as a whole, but Deny as a pass rusher and filling run lanes for the quarterback is going to be a very important role for him to play. I'm excited to watch him go out there and play it.
Same.
Bill, what's your plans for this game? Do you know yet?
Well, we actually just had to push back starting the pod by a good 30 seconds because I went to go look for what I wanted my plan to be, and it would require me going way out to the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, one of the suburbs that I don't want to go to. So I don't know. Once I'm done with Zach, this is why I have not texted you back yet, brother. This is what I need to figure out what I'm doing for this game. But I know whatever I do for the game, I'm going to be wearing home field apparel.
I'm going to a bar for this game. I plan to go to a bar for this game. There is a couple of Penn State Alumni Association bars throughout the city of Chicago. Also, I went to the Frozen Confines game at Wrigley Field this past week. What a cool environment for a hockey game. I don't know anything about hockey. I will happily admit that. And I had a great time. It was great. Penn State lost, sadly, in a shootout to Notre Dame. But college hockey had a great atmosphere. It was cool. And I got to see a lot of Penn Staters come out there and show their pride, which was cool to see. And in the crowds at Wrigley Field on a cold January night, I got a hot dog, but I was also rocking t-shirts that I had, or one t-shirt. Well, actually, I had layers on. So I think I had a home field t-shirt and then a home field crew neck and then a big jacket over it all. Home field apparel makes some of the coolest collegiate apparel in the marketplace today. Crew necks, t-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, joggers. I got the home field joggers on right now, actually, as well as my Penn State Nittany Lions script logo tee. And they really do take the time to dig through the archives, find unique logos, unique scripts that you can use for the shirts, and they really make some of the coolest collegiate apparel in the marketplace today. And our listeners can get 15% off their first order with promo code RLR24. The code is still active. We will probably have to change it pretty soon, but as of right now, the promo code is RLR24. 15% off your first order at Home Field Apparel. Thank you, Home Field is always sponsoring this podcast. And Bill, I have so many things to say about the Penn State offense. So I'm going to pass you the mic first.
All right, good. Yeah, I think that. So we'll start before I hand the ball off to Matt by just mentioning that this Notre Dame defense has been really banged up this season. Their starting defensive line for the coming into the year was Riley Mills, Jordan Botelho, Boubacar Traore, and Howard Cross. The first three have all been ruled out for the season. Cross, he is pretty banged up, has been banged up for quite a bit during the season. I think he got banged up again against Georgia. I think the expectation is that he is going to play, but nobody's 100% sure. As of right now, another important member of their defensive line, Joshua Burnham, also is banged up. Their star cornerback, Benjamin Morrison, he is also out for the season. And yet, despite that, they've been able to overcome basically all of this. They're super disciplined. They are super well coached.
They wrap up.
Their safety duo of Xavier Watson, Aiden Schuler might be the best 1-2 punch at safety in college football. Their starting cornerback, one of their starting quarterbacks, Christian Gray, was the guy who started opposite Morrison. He has been quite good this season, but you go through their defense, Donovan Hinish along the defensive line, Junior Tuihalamaka on their defensive line, their linebacker room, guys like Jack Kaiser and Drake Bowen, Jaden Osbury, Jalen Sneed, all have been really reliable options for them. The guy who stepped in for Morrison, Leonard Moore, you've been able to pick on him a little bit, but for the most part, he's been a really solid player. It's just an awesome defense, one that, if they had their full collection of guys, they are probably the best or second best defense in the country.
Oh, yeah.
And yet without them, they have been one of the 5 or so best defenses in the country. It's an incredibly impressive, an incredibly difficult group for Andy Kotelnicki to come up with a plan.
Coached by Penn State or Al Golden. Shout out to Al Golden. I don't want to get negative, Bill. I try to be a positive guy on the podcast.
Good start.
But I'm going to be negative here. pardon my language, the bullshit game Andy Kotelnicki called against Ohio State cannot rear its head again. Penn State cannot shit the bed against a big team in this game. It seems like for the last 2 years, when Penn State has played a capital B big dog in college football, the offense tucks its tail between its legs and runs home. Ohio State 2023, Michigan 2023, Ohio State 2024. Oregon is kind of the exception to this, which has me feeling a little bit more optimistic. But to watch Penn State get a 10-point lead over Ohio State at home and then score 0 offensive touchdowns in that game and lose that game has me nervous that could repeat itself against another top 5 defense in America, which Notre Dame definitely is. Andy Kotelnicki was brought here to win these games. If you wanted your season to be, we beat Maryland, we beat up on Purdue, we beat up on Rutgers, great. Mike Yurcich would still be the offensive coordinator. Andy Kotelnicki is here to take them to the next level. And if you want to silence anybody's questions on if this season brought you there, you need to put up points in this game. Not a lot of points. I think this is a race to like 21. But after watching them put up 0 against Ohio State, I need Andy Kotelnicki, Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Tyler Warren, Trey Wallace, Amari Evans, Katron Allen, the offensive line, to play a damn good football game and atone for the disaster that happened the last time they were in a pretty similar environment to this.
So the thing I will say, and I don't necessarily think you're wrong. I mean, Franklin said this week, I want us to be aggressive. I want Tom Allen to call the game aggressively, Justin Lustig to call the game aggressively. I want Andy Kotelnicki to call the game aggressively and creatively. Like, there's definitely something to all of, no question there is something to all of that. I think that we know enough about Andy Kotelnicki and how he wants to call games to know that he wants to build things around his running game. He wants to build things around the ability to move the ball on the ground and go from there. And in that game against Ohio State, Katron Allen ran the ball 12 times for 27 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. His long of the day was 7 yards. That was still early, 8 games. So early in the season is not quite right. That was before he started to really find his way towards the end of the year. Nick Singleton, that was when he was still dealing with whatever knock it looked like he picked up. 6 carries, 15 yards, 2.5 yards per attempt. 4 yards was his long on the day.
Can't happen.
It can't happen. I agree. The bigger thing is that I think with how well Penn State's offensive line has been playing, but more importantly, how well those 2 running backs have been playing, and how Nick Singleton looks springier and fresher than he has all season, how Katron Allen is back to having that metronomic quality about him where it's, what you're going to get out of Katron Allen whenever you hand the football to him.
He's running angry. He's running like he's pissed at the ground. It's awesome.
I am not as concerned about that as I am, I'm not looking back on the Ohio State game and thinking that can't happen, because I do think a lot of why they struggled against Ohio State was their inability to run the football. And one thing that you can do against Notre Dame is that you can run the ball on them a bit. Opponents, 4.4 yards per play against them, which is tied for 4th nationally. Opponents are converting 29.74% of their third downs against them, which is 4th nationally. Opponents for running for 3.6 yards per rush against them. Put an asterisk on that, which is tied for 19th nationally, completing 50.61% of their passes against this defense, which is 1st nationally, sacking you on 8.13% of dropbacks, which is 23rd nationally. 5.8 yards per attempt is tied for 2nd nationally, and 11.4 yards per completion is tied for 40th nationally. I said put the asterisk on yards per rush because I think you can move the ball on them when you have guys with speed
and an offensive line that'll clear the path.
And that USC ran for 7.4 yards per carry. Louisville was at 5.1 yards per carry, other than there was a bad snap on a punt that went for a loss of 42 yards, which dropped them down to like 3.8 yards per carry or something like that. Navy was at 5.2 yards per carry. There have been offenses that have been able to run the ball on Notre Dame. And if Penn State can do that against a defensive line that is still very good, but has been patchwork for much of this season, I think they will be able to have a little success on offense. Not a lot of success, a little success on offense, but there is a chance that is all that they need to have.
Bill, was the Boise State game kind of the perfect encapsulation of what the Penn State running game can be? Punishing Katron Allen run, punishing Katron Allen run, punishing Katron Allen run. Oh my God, Nick Singleton's free for 58 yards. Like that kind of feels like what we've been waiting for, or what's been the, if you were to describe the past 2.5 years of Penn State football's running game, I think everybody would say that's what we want it to look like. That feels like a really good formula again. Like this should be a very big Katron Allen gets the lion's share of the touches kind of game again.
I mean, let's even go beyond that, because I think that limiting it to Boise State almost does. Yeah. And I know you're not doing this on purpose. I think that almost like does these running backs a disservice.
It does, because against Oregon, go ahead. Sorry.
Against Oregon, Katron Allen, 14 carries, 124 yards, 8.9 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Nick Singleton, 10 for 105, didn't find the end zone there.
But did have a receiving touchdown
against SMU. He did. Against SMU, Singleton, 14 for 90, 6.4 yards per carry and a touchdown. Allen, 11 for 70, 6.4 yards per carry and 2 touchdowns. Against Boise, Allen, 17 for 134, 7.9 yards per carry. Singleton, 12 for 87, 7.3 yards per carry and a touchdown. Penn State's running game is starting to find its footing at the exact moment when they need to find their footing. And I think that's a really important and a really fun development for Penn State. One, because it just means you have someone fresh back there. But 2, because when you can run the football in Andy Kotelnicki's offense, that's what opens up more than anything the smoke and mirrors that leads to shots to Omari Evans, which those shots are going to be extra risky because of Watts and Schuler at the back of Notre Dame's defense. That's going to lead to opening up a little more space for Tyler Warren. That's going to lead to linebackers sneak up. Suddenly there's a window to throw into Trey Wallace to pick up a first down. Like all of this stuff with Penn State's defense or Penn State's offense is related to one another. It is all built off of the running game. And it's not going to be easy to run the ball on Notre Dame, but finding just enough success in the running game to take some of the pressure off of Drew Aller and the pass catchers in this game, even though James Franklin did say that he's impressed with how they've developed this season, I think that's going to be really important.
We'll shift off the running backs for a second here, because I feel like they have earned they've earned a lot less of like the frustration I've had, in the last 8 weeks since Ohio State or whatever it's been. Drew's going to have to win this game with a couple big time throws. He's not going to have to win this game with 35 pass attempts, but there's going to be, I think, 4 key plays in this game for Drew Aller that he has to hit on. I feel confident saying, if you can find a line somewhere of the Aller over under interceptions, if it's 0.5, take the over. I think Aller can give the ball away once or twice in this game, and Penn State could still be competitive in this game and even win the game with that hanging over it. Boise State provided a really good blueprint for how to frustrate Drew Aller. Aller, not that I don't think he played a phenomenal game, but when Boise State brought pressure, specifically in the A-gap and right up the gut, and they needed to bring pressure with extra guys to make this happen, because a 4-man rush by Boise wasn't coming anywhere close to getting home. So when Boise added those extra blitzers and when they blitzed right up the middle, that's when Aller was at his worst last week on New Year's Eve. That feels like a very smart plan, and a Notre Dame defense that has the pieces who are fast enough, tall enough, athletic enough to get home and bat some balls up in the air. And who knows what happens from there if that is the game plan. And I think it should be.
And what I will say is that's not all on Drew
It's
Aller.
not.
That's partially on Drew Aller. It's on Nick Dawkins to be able to see and recognize that stuff and know how you have to pass stuff off. It's on the running backs to be able to pick up those blitzes. Notre Dame's defense is a very aggressive, very creative defense. They're going to bring pressure from all over and try and speed your quarterback up. And if you give them an opportunity to capitalize on a mistake, they are a defense that will capitalize on a mistake. They're really, really disciplined and well coached. Just a really impressive unit that I will have to double check this. Penn State might be the best offense that they've played this year. I will need to double check that
Army and
before I
Navy
say
might
that
have
with
better
any
numbers,
certainty.
but that's kind of like, how do you quantify that?
Penn State is 7th in SP plus. Miami is 1. Oregon is 2. Ohio State is 3. Bama's 4. Ole Miss is 5. And Notre Dame 6. So yeah, this will be the best offense that Notre Dame has played against this
Per
season.
SP plus.
Per SP plus, yes. The thing that I will say about this game, and this kind of goes to the prediction I'm going to make at the very end of this. If this game comes down to which quarterback is going to make the big mistake, I think the game favors Notre Dame.
Agreed.
Not because I think Drew is someone who is going to make big mistakes. I just think he is more likely to do that than Riley Leonard. But the other side of this coin, and it's pretty funny because this was the story of the first year of Drew Aller, was that he never made mistakes, but as a result, he never made the big play. He never did the thing to win Penn State the game. And this year, he's still not really making mistakes. He's making a couple more mistakes, but he's still not making a ton. But he has been able to kind of find the confidence and the swagger to make big plays. And if this game comes down to which quarterback is going to make the big play to win this game, I'm taking Drew Aller over Riley Leonard every single day.
Agreed.
Not because I don't think highly of Riley Leonard. I just think Drew Aller is more capable of that than Riley Leonard is. And I think that in Tyler Warren, you can make the argument that the top 2 pass catchers in this game are Tyler Warren is number 1, and then number 2 is Trey Wallace. He has more pass catching weapons who can punish the opposing team than Riley Leonard does. So Drew's going to have to, again, see the stuff that you didn't see that particularly well last game. Keep that little bit of composure that I don't want to say got away from him last game, but
he did throw some dots.
kind of
his receivers just didn't make 50-50 plays on
yeah,
him.
Yeah. I'm more saying that when you are getting pressured and you are getting sped up, you're going to have to deal with that every now and then. You're going to have to be able to keep your composure in the face of that. And if he can do that and make a big play or two with his arm, Penn State's got a real good shot in this one. And I trust Drew Aller to be able to do that. It's just a matter of when that moment comes, what are you going to do?
Let's talk about those pass catchers briefly here, Bill. Tyler Warren, status quo. Like he's going to get his. He caught 2 touchdowns in the playoff game. Like, it was cool. Awesome last week. Notre Dame's going to play a ton of man. I don't think there are very many guys who can cover Tyler Warren one-on-one. If you get the opportunity to get Warren one-on-one, try to get him the football as often as you can. Feels like a sound strategy.
Watts is the kind of player, and I wouldn't be surprised if they take a page or two out of Ohio State's playbook and basically
have like what Downs did.
Yeah, that mixed with, if you're going to have an extra guy or two paying attention to someone, have them pay attention to Warren. And if that means you're double and triple teaming Warren and daring Trey Wallace, Amari Evans, Liam Clifford, Julian Fleming, Khalil Dinkins, Luke Reynolds, whomever to punish you, then you take that chance. I don't think that, I think Notre Dame's cornerbacks are good. I don't think they are as good as the refs allowed Ohio State's cornerbacks to be on that day, but that's neither here nor there. Just get the ball to find ways, and I trust Andy Kotelnicki to be able to do this, to be able to find ways to get the ball into the hands of Tyler Warren, because good things just happen when you do that.
Anybody out wide interest you in this game for Penn State? Trey Wallace is been pretty good. I think Amari Evans has really come on strong. Preview pod listeners know Amari Evans' anytime touchdown last game was a lock. As always, he has played really well down the stretch. That great play down the sideline. It's really kind of just been Amari and Trey for a while. You think that kind of maintains itself here? I kind of think my bold prediction here, if you want to call it that, is Julian Fleming gets in the end zone in this game. With how much man Notre Dame is going to try to play, it makes sense for Penn State's biggest bodied receiver, who made great plays against man coverage on fourth down twice against USC. I get those are two very different animals, the USC defense versus the Notre Dame defense, but it's been a while since Julian Fleming's done that, and he's shown he can do it. So I think Fleming is a guy who could find himself in an interesting spot here and there.
I would say Evans, because going back to what I just said, if Notre Dame is going to try to replicate what Ohio State did and have their All-American safety basically shadow Tyler Warren, that means they're going to be playing a lot of cover one, and you're going to be able to get in behind them. And if you're able to get in behind them, that is Amari Evans territory. Right. So I'm paying attention to that. How much is Notre Dame going to focus its game plan around stopping Tyler Warren? And if they do that, is Amari Evans or Trey Wallace? Trey Wallace is by no means incapable of getting behind a defense and making a big play. If those two are able to take advantage of the fact that, and even you only have to do this once or twice, if they are able to do that because Notre Dame, between their mix of bringing pressure and focusing on Tyler Warren, gives that up, that is something that I think Penn State has to be able to take advantage of once or twice.
One more guy I want to call out here, Bill. Luke Reynolds. First play of the game on offense for Penn State, the ball goes to Luke Reynolds, former 5-star tight end, the backup to Tyler Warren, who plays a ton. I think they got something planned for Reynolds. Nothing crazy, okay, but I think he's going to catch the ball a couple times in this game. Any one person on offense you want to call out, or kind of Amari was that? Anybody else you want to hit on before we shift to the final little bit of this podcast?
I mean, I would say that I would probably say Nick Dawkins for the reason that I just said, which is
he's got to be better.
He has got to be better, and Notre Dame is not going to make it easy on him to be better, right? Like Notre Dame, it's not like Notre Dame is going to try and do things that it's not like Notre Dame is going to try and do things to make his life easier. Okay, just make it so when they bring that little bit of pressure. And again, this is part of a chain that involves Drew. It involves the rest of the offensive line. It involves whoever the running back is, whatever. Make sure that you could take advantage, or make sure that Drew has time to throw and knows what is coming when they bring that bit of pressure, when they try to confuse you, even if it's something as simple as they're doing a stunt up front and you have to know who is passing off to who and who is going to be taking it, whatever it might be. Just miscommunications and not doing the right thing on a given play is the thing that I think could end up killing Penn State. And if they, the more you cut down on that, the better your chances are going to be of winning in this football game.
Notre Dame special teams, we'll call it out here. Neither of us are special teams experts, but they are very, very good. They returned a kick for a touchdown against Georgia. They are very aggressive and will try to block kicks. They are one of the best coached special teams units in the country. Penn State's punting has not been great all year, but it's going to be of paramount importance that everybody does their job well when those opportunities come. And Gabe Wosu's got to boot that ball out of the back of the end zone on kickoffs. It's just something I'm watching.
Yeah, and I will two things I will end up mentioning here. One is that if you look at SP Plus, Penn State is 6th nationally and Notre Dame is 7th nationally. So when Bill Connolly puts out his projection, it's going to be an ultra tight game, but SP Plus is going to have Penn State narrowly winning it. That's going to be like less than a point, I think,
right?
Oh yeah, it's going to be a Penn State by 0.3 points. Notre Dame's offense and defense are both better than Penn State's, but there's a pretty stark drop-off in special teams that, again, a lot of that comes back to the struggles that they've had place kicking. And then in a bit of bad news for college football fans in general, the referee crew is not just coming from the Big 12, it is the crew that called the game between Notre Dame and Georgia. So we are going to be dealing with Big 12 refs on Thursday.
Fun. Always fun. All right, Bill. We're 54 minutes and 17 seconds into this podcast, and I can't wait another moment. I need a score prediction from you.
Hold on. Abdul Carter just posted another Star Wars thing to Instagram.
Who'd he post? Is it Sebulba?
It's a video of Ewan McGregor staring
Obi-Wan.
at. Was that who Ewan McGregor
Correct.
played? I
no culture from Bill.
Who's the guy in that he's been posting?
Darth Vader when he's in the back to tank. It's to help him recover.
In the back to tank. Okay. He posted a video of Obi-Wan looking at him in the back to tank and just said, "Revenge of the Sticks, Sticks Cities returns in." And so, Jesus
he
Christ.
rocks, dude. He is
our most wide receiver defensive player in all of college football, which I think is pretty
sick. He's
awesome. He's great.
It's a great scene too, Bill. This is from the Obi-Wan miniseries on Disney Plus. Not a sponsor, but they could be. Oh hell yeah! This is sick. All right, sorry. This is terrible podcast, dude. I'm so sorry. I'm looking at my phone while I'm on the camera. This is awesome, dude. He rocks.
Yeah,
Abdul.
When I look at this game, I ultimately think it is going to come down to just which team do I trust to not make the big mistake. And as much as I want that to be Penn State, and this might just be because as a Penn State fan, I've watched so much more Penn State. I felt them make mistakes. I felt what happens when they make a mistake. I felt like these kinds of things. I just give that mixed with the uncertainty of Abdul Carter and what that does to Penn State's defense. I give the narrowest of edges in my mind to Notre Dame. I think this game is the ultimate toss-up, but if you are asking me which team do I think is one more likely to make a mistake on either side of the football, it is Penn State. And two, what team do I think is more likely to be able to capitalize on a mistake? It is Notre Dame. This game is razor tight. Razor sharp. It is like as tight as can possibly be. Whoever wins is going to win something like 21-20. You're asking me on Monday, and today I feel like that is Notre Dame. You could ask me on Tuesday, and I might say Penn State. You can ask me on Wednesday, and I might say either team. You can ask me on Thursday morning, and I will say Penn State, and then Thursday afternoon, I will say Notre Dame, just because I know how I get in the lead up to games. I will predict a final score of 21-20. For now, I will pick Notre Dame as a winner, but I don't feel good about that in either direction.
Penn State 23, Notre Dame 20. I think Penn State wins this football game. James Franklin, undefeated in the playoffs, continues that stretch, gets to his third playoff win. Bill, I think this matchup plays just 5% better into Penn State's hands, considering what this running game has turned into these last, let's call it 3 games since the Big Ten title game. This Penn State offense being able to go out there and run the football efficiently, what it has done in terms of opening up one-on-one opportunities for Tyler Warren, and with Amari Evans coming on strong as a legitimate downfield option on not just deep shots. That throw on the sideline where he made that phenomenal catch, I think, is a sign of future things to come. I think the Penn State defense is able to limit Riley Leonard's damage. I think they're able to keep Jeremiah Love in check. Jeremiah Love, I think, has a better shot of ripping off a big one than Genty does. But I still think Penn State gets a 3-point win here. Penn State 23, Notre Dame 20. It's my final score prediction.
Yeah. It's completely fair. I don't have an especially strong feeling on the winner in either direction, just because like I don't know how anyone can when these two teams, when I am looking through it in my blue and white tinted glasses, I feel very strongly that Penn State is going to win. When I look at this and I like just stub my toe or something, I'm going to think that Notre Dame is going to win. These teams are really evenly matched. These teams are both battle tested. They are led by really good coaches, really good quarterbacks, coordinators who have made things happen. Like, this is what, for all the belly aching about how this isn't the best 4 teams or whatever it might be, this is a game befitting of a national semifinal.
Correct.
And I think that's awesome. And then one thing I think is very obviously worth mentioning, not probably, this is the coolest thing about this game. No matter what, there's going to be a black head coach competing for a national championship. We have not had that in the playoff era. We have not had a black coach lead a team to a national championship. James Franklin, back in 2019, said in a video, I don't usually talk about this publicly, but my goal is to be the first African-American football coach to win a college football national championship. Marcus Freeman has spoken about the importance that he places on this and trying to be an inspiration to young black coaches making a name in the world of college football. It's, there is a lot in this game, and that's one of the really important things that is worth mentioning. Like, there is so much, Matt, about this game that is cool, and I cannot wait for, it's almost 7:30 on Monday night. I cannot wait for it to be 72 hours. What is it, 72 hours? Yeah, 72 hours. 76 hours.
No, you're right. 48 plus
Okay.
24, 72. Sorry, I have a comm degree. I apologize to Bob Martin.
So do I.
There
that doesn't
go.
work.
I apologize to Bill Zimmerman and the entire comm faculty as well. Bill, if you're listening, shout out to you. That's a very deep cut for like 12 people who took his class.
And I'm one of them,
Yeah,
baby.
exactly. Bill, one last thing. Another reason, maybe I'm wish cashing a bit here, but the amount of copium we're going to have online with people having to come to terms with James Franklin playing for a national title is going to be so funny. Dude, the amount of copium these weirdos who don't understand how college football works, who just wanted to dunk on the Penn State coach, will have to just deal with. Oh, it's going to be so funny if Penn State can pull it off. Man, I hope they can do it. All right, Bill.
If they hate to let them hate and watch your money pile up. Want to do 2 minutes on Ohio State and Texas? What do you think about that one?
Ohio State, War Machine. Give me Ohio State by 17. No, 10.
Ohio State are 5.5 point favorites.
Double it.
SP Plus has Penn State Ohio State by almost 5 points. FPI, weirdly enough, has Texas narrowly 50.6% chance of winning. I think Texas, if they can run the ball a little bit, which they didn't really do against Arizona State, if they can run the ball a little bit and just win in the trenches, I think they have a shot in this one. Their defense coordinator probably going to end up winning the Broyles Award. I think he's going to, at the very least, put together a good game plan against Ohio State. The 2 big things for me: 1, Texas has to be able to run the ball. I'm not 100%. Well, 3 big things. 1, Texas has to be able to run the ball. Not sure they're going to be able to. 2, Quinn Ewers has to play like a 5-star, which he, for some reason, doesn't always feel like doing. And then 3, watch for the cornerbacks of Ohio State going up against the receivers of Texas. Watch how much the referees are going to let Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun get away with being really grabby and really physical with Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond and Ryan Wingo. If they are allowed to do that, they are going to run Texas off of the field. If they are not allowed to do that and the game is called very tight, Texas has a real shot in this one.
Bill, I'm going to retweet right now from the blog account, the Abdul Carter post, because now he just posted it to Twitter, and I had somebody send it to me. So he's really getting his posts off. Yeah, Bill, I mean, if the refs let the Ohio State defense really play as aggressively as they want to, now, I really think Quinn Ewers is a better quarterback than he gets credit for. I think similar to Aller, people have social media brain about him and don't really understand how to judge him because the name they know is the backup to him. So I think they're really critical of him for no reason. But I think Quinn, you can get him to make a mistake or two. And I think Ohio State can win that ball game.
Yeah. So when he plays a 60-minute game, he's as good as everyone. His problem is he doesn't always play 60-minute games.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Bill, anything else you want to touch on now before we send the folks off into the rest of their week?
No, I just hope people give them, we're all going to be really nervous. We're all going to be, we're all going to wake up on Thursday and we're going to struggle to get through the workday. We're going to, forget to eat something, whatever it might be. I hope that between when you listen to this podcast and the opening kickoff of the game, every single Penn State fan takes an opportunity to appreciate how cool this moment is. There's been a lot of work, a lot of blood, a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of football, a lot of everything that has gone into Penn State getting to this exact point. And I just hope that win, lose, or draw, well, win or lose, because you can't draw in college football, despite the fact that I think you should be able to draw in college football. Neither
Do
here
you
nor
really?
there.
You can't
I think
drop that
regular
on me
season
an
games
hour
should
and
end
5
ties.
minutes in, and then not want me to do.
I think regular season games should end in ties. I think it is ridiculous that we just fundamentally and ruin the way that the sport of football is played because we have to figure out a winner. That's for another episode. Win or lose, I hope every Penn State fan gives themselves an opportunity to go, my fandom has been leading me to this point. I'm really happy. I'm really excited, and I can't wait to watch what the Nittany Lions
Bill, I
do.
think a basketball game, instead of overtime, if it goes to a second overtime, center should have to have a 3-point shootout. So that way it gives you a reason to have like a Jokic type player as opposed to like a Drummond.
I'm sure, Matt, I am sure every single basketball team would love to have a Jokic over a Drummond.
Listen, that's fair. Drummond, former Sixer. Trust the process now and forever. All right, Bill, that's all I got. If you're traveling down to Miami for the game, travel safe. Enjoy the nice weather. It is snowing currently across the Midwest, and I think most of like the Mid-Atlantic, with Virginia and Baltimore getting hit pretty hard. So again, if you are traveling, please do travel safe and enjoy the nice weather. Be sure to wear white. Penn State will be wearing blue in this game. As a reminder, kickoff is at 7:30. The game is set to air on ESPN. The Nittany Lions are 2.5 to 3-point underdogs at time of recording. Penn State, Notre Dame, college football semifinals. The first time these two teams have met since Jimmy Clausen lost in Happy Valley in 2007. Trying to remember how I do the outro now. Oh, and I'm not going to end.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. Make sure you go to your podcast platform of choice, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, whatever it might be. Subscribe to us there. Leave us a 5-star review if you can. That goes a long way. If you're a YouTube user, head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hop into the comments, talk about Penn State football with whoever might show up in the YouTube comments. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Blue Sky. We're on both of those posting. And yeah, thanks again to Home Field Apparel for sponsoring the podcast. Use the promo code RLR24 to get 15% off of your first order if you've never ordered from Home Field Apparel before. One last time, thank you, everyone, for listening to this edition of the pod. For my co-host, Matt Filipovitz, I'm Bill DeFilippo. Take care.
Well done, Bill. I mentioned Jimmy Clausen and my brain broke. Go State.